We're going to be doing 6x6 tiles on this back wall, a very simple pattern. I feel a lot of ways these standard tiles, these colored tiles, really bring a lot of nice flavor and design to the bathroom, and it doesn't have to be completely sophisticated to get a nice clean look to it. So these tiles are really going to be somewhat user-friendly because there isn't a lot of time into the layout. But you do want to spend that time on the layout portion to make sure that everything is going to try to align to where you need it to be throughout the project. So the first thing you want to do, okay, so in this bathroom, we're doing the tile in the back, obviously in this whole tile area, but we're also doing a wainscoting all the way around the room. So the first thing you need to establish is where's the low point in the bathroom, because if you're going to do 6x6s, going all around the room, you want it to be aligned within the tub surround as well, or it's going to look really off or off. So you want to make sure that you find the low spot of your bathroom so that when you start out with a full tile, that you're not going to have any type of sliver at the bottom. You can always cut this down to fit. If you have base trim, you would also do the same thing. If you had base trim, you want to make sure you find the low point and then just scribe cut the base trim to fit the unlevelness. So let's first use a laser. Laser is usually the fastest and easiest way to do that. So we'll just put this on the horizontal position and let's just measure around to the floor area. So here we have 34 3/8, and then on this side of the room, 34 1/2. So looking at this corner, 34 1/4, so that's a little bit higher than those others. And I'm pretty sure this is the low spot, but just measure this, 34 7/8. So this is the low point. I kind of figured that was going to be the case just because we were lining up with our existing floor out here, and I already had kind of assumed that this was going to be a low point. So this side of the wall is where you want to have the full tile and establish your level line so that we know what we want for the tub surround. So we're going to start with a full tile here. So let's give ourselves a little bit of space underneath it there as well. You always want to have a little bit of a gap at the floor. So we're just going to use our little horseshoe shim to establish that. Okay, so this is going to be, that's going to be where our start point is. Okay, so this will be where we'll be setting our tile for the perimeter of the bottom. And you can also just double check this too, make sure it's going to be below 6 inches. So you got 6 inches there, 5 1/2 there, so it's a 1/2 inch. And then looking over here, 5 5/8. So as you can tell, there's a 1/2 inch difference there. Let's just double check this side, make sure that we're going to be below 6, and we're 5 7/8. So this point is what we want to reference to come up our tub wall. So put a mark here. So that's right on that line, which is pretty awesome because I think that will essentially be right at the tub deck. So we're going to basically be starting out with a full tile all the way around that perimeter. So that's going to be pretty awesome. It doesn't always work out that way, but let's just go ahead and put a space under here because we want to have space at the tub deck. Let's just take a look here. So we've got a little bit of more of a gap here than I want. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower this down a little bit because we're basically, everything is within a 1/4 inch or within reason. So we can always lower this bottom row here a 1/4 inch so that we can get this row down lower. I don't want to have anything more than like a 1/16 inch gap here between my tub. 1/8 inch at most. Anything more than that, it's going to be kind of problematic, and you're going to have a really big fat grout joint that you'll be caulking in that corner. So I'd rather keep it minimal to the tub because that's definitely going to be a visual reference that people are going to see. If you have a big gap, it's going to, just be a lot of silicone. And plus, we're using 1/16 inch spacers throughout, so you really don't want to have it more than that or it'll look off. So let's lower this slightly, and what that'll do is lower my entire wall going around, which won't be a big deal. But the reason I'm starting on this back wall too is because when you're looking at the tub surround, you can kind of hide the grout joints to where this wall comes up to it, and it's harder to establish, see that grout joint, and it'll hide that better. You're going to be caulking the corners anyways, but it's always a good idea to try to hide the grout joint from your visual reference at any angle that you come into the shower. So that's why we're working on the back wall first, and then we're going to be doing the side walls coming around. Now we also are going to have some wide bullnose that are going to come around here. So it's really just going to be one piece of bullnose that comes on these outside edges, and then our wainscoting will butt up to that. So this is kind of its own entity, but you want to have all your grout joints for your wainscoting to be in a line going all the way around. So let's just go ahead and lower this, because we have the ability to do that, and just lower that first row on the wainscoting. I'd prefer to cut this down and get this to where we want it. The other thing we want to do is measure what we have here. So we got 6, and then we are a little bit higher on this back edge, 6 3/4 or 5 3/4. So we're a 1/4 inch higher on this side, which we can scribe cut that bottom row. So the same thing is with a tub surround. You want to find your low point, and if you're going to start with a full tile, start at that low point so that you can scribe cut and make sure that you have, an accurate joint between the tub, and that you're keeping everything level. Now, I do get a lot of questions about whether to use a ledger board at this point, putting a board right here and working my way up with the tile. Definitely a way to go about it, but in my mind, it's just going to be quicker to be able to install the tile referencing the laser, because I don't have to go back and fill in those areas. It's always a little bit more complicated when you have a fixed point to have to keep even, and then also scribe cut to the base. So if I could scribe cut all my tile and just make sure that I follow my laser, it makes it a lot more quick, efficient installation. But ledger boards are definitely a great idea. If you don't have a laser, a ledger board would be the best way to go, so that you can put a level on there, work your way up and fill those tiles in. But once you have a laser, you really won't go back. You'll start out this way and it'll go a lot quicker. Okay, so the next part of the layout, now that we established where our height is, we want to evaluate really kind of what, this all goes into the ceiling as well. So you might have to adjust this row dependent on what it looks like at the top. So we're basically starting out with a full tile on our low side. So let's just kind of reference our measurement to the ceiling and see where we're going to be. So there are 6-inch tiles exactly. You're going to add on basically a 16th to each row. So 72. So you have 78, and then basically a 4-inch piece above that. So we got 82 inches to the top. Now this is a little bit of a higher ceiling than a normal ceiling. The whole height of this ceiling from the floor is actually 8'4". Most of you would probably have an 8-foot ceiling, or maybe even a little less than that. But it all is referenced to what you have, and we have 82 inches, so that's going to work out great. We should roughly be having about a 3.5 to 4-inch piece at the ceiling. Anything with these tiles, I would say anything less than 2 inches is going to look pretty forced. Now we are just simply doing the 6x6s all the way up. There's not going to be any type of border, but if you did have a border, that's where you can add and fudge things a little bit by adding another row or doing something to make sure that that ceiling looks right. But in this case, it's going to work out great. We're going to basically have a 4-inch piece at the top, a lot of additional fudge room in case things kind of grow higher than what we expect. So a lot of ways to have an exit plan if you get too small up there, but in this case, it'll be pretty streamlined here. One other feature we're planning on doing is putting in a recessed niche. I did not cut that out, obviously. We're going to do that after we set the tile, roughly somewhere within this region. We're going to have it, but we want to have it all coming up to so that the grout joint meets the top of the niche. So this would be the best, most accurate way to do it, is to cut it in after you get your tiling started. Okay, so the last part of your layout, since we're going to be putting the niches in later, that kind of eliminates any issues there with trying to make sure that you have the right height to the niche. Really makes it easier because you don't have to stress about having any type of sliver towards the niche. You can make that niche where you want it with your tile layout. The second part of the pattern, or the third part of the pattern, is just establishing the center. Usually on a tub, normal tub, 59 inches would be your overall opening. So it's 29 and a half. And with 6x6s or anything like that, like subway tile or 6x6s, you just start from the center, you'll end up with like a 5-2-5 pattern. So just mark this across, make sure that you're not getting anything less than 2 inches. And here we are, we will have 5 inches. So it'll be 5-2-5-2. And that also will work out well because when we go into our niche, we're gonna actually be cutting out the board so that these wall tile will go into the niche. And so at the 2-inch level, we're gonna have basically a 3 to 4 inch deep niche, which will work out well with that layout. That you really can't control all that much as far as the depth going in there. I mean, most of the time you're not gonna be able to, you don't wanna change basically your side pieces. You want it to be equal on either side, having, what if you have a 5-inch piece here, have a 5-inch piece here. You don't want to offset that or it's going to look kind of odd. And then we'll work on our layout as we come out the walls after we get the back wall set. So order of operation, setting your back wall first, the side walls to your shower, and then going into the wainscoting around the bathroom.